Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week ahead collective readings for November 3rd through 10th. Slightly disturbed by seeing those dates. I'm also recording this well in advance because the day that this is dropping, I'm going to be traveling. So I recorded it before I went on my vacation. So it's even more freaky for me to be saying those dates out loud. So because this is pre-recorded, what I did was I sat here, I selected my cards face down as I normally do in my classes on Insight Timer. We're going to be using cards from the Moon deck. They're both Oracle cards. And the Moonology Manifestation deck. So essentially, I'm just going to be recapping the insights that came through. I'll show you the cards as we get to them. And then we'll have the regular analysis section where I go through and just give my 2 cents on them and some additional context that's helpful to consider. For the first collective reading, we were using just a card from the Moon deck. So I'll share the insights that came in first. So I was getting a visual of a pickle in brine. So it's this acidic environment that we're floating in. And it's giving a metaphor of this saltiness and in some ways disgust. And we might even not fully be aware of it because of the fact that we're just sitting in it. I do want to give a side note here that this is not to say this is an attack on pickles. I like pickles. So it's just describing the sensory experience through this metaphor. So please set that aside if you're someone who does like pickles and me saying that they're disgusting is triggering in some way. So we're floating in this slightly dysfunctional environment. And around day 5 in the week, which is most likely Friday, maybe Saturday, depending on your time zone, it's as if a water filter, some sort of filtration system, is attached to the jar that we're in. And so the pickle juice starts clearing up. All of the acid is going away and it's fully clear and just becomes water. And it's as if we can see things in a fundamentally different way. And maybe we're recognizing we didn't know how unpleasurable that environment was. And we can relax a little bit more, be held a little bit more, and really recognize through contrast how unsupportive it was versus the water situation that we're in the latter portion of the week. So the card that we had for this reading was the interconnected card. With a steady mind, I am connected to our collective experience. Typically, when I get this card, it's some sort of a signal around maybe like your intuition is on overdrive, like you're really connected to what is happening around you. You may just be particularly sensitive, particularly tuned in, as in paying attention to what is going on with other people. And what I was drawn to when I was flipping this over was the whole steady piece, the steady mind. It seemed to indicate what happens to us once the water gets clear. It's like the pH balance, it's like all that stuff. Things are just getting adjusted, clarified in a way that we become steady again, but also the effort that is required on our part to navigate through the circumstances. So it's important to have the steadiness. And of course, as I am channeling this, all I can think about is the last few weeks of collective readings. So if you've heard some of those, I'll talk about this more in the analysis section, but the mind has been top of mind pretty much all of October and coming up repeatedly in these collective readings in slightly different fashions. For the second reading, there's an emphasis on temperature. So seeing a snowman, and it was starting to scoop up a bunch of different snowballs. So it's like compiling all of them. And there was this look of determination, like a really furrowed brow, like frowning, like a harshness to the overall disposition. This wasn't like a happy, adorable snow person. This second reading feels like it's a PSA and there's like a warning label on this because it's not particularly joyful or supportive. There's no snow family or community around this individual. And really what they're doing is just arming themselves to strike back or take revenge. It feels very impulsive, very hardened. So the main warning is to catch yourself if you are slipping into this mindset and this type of a behavior, if you're switching how you're operating all of a sudden and it's getting very, very intense and reactionary, because this feels like it's reacting to the collective, to circumstances and things that are happening to you or things that you are just in. So as you can see here, there's like some little echoes even to the first reading. So the main message is that we have the choice to control our behavior, to control our responses, to control how we react to people, to circumstances that we believe or even frankly know are harmful for us. So the card that we got for the second reading is from the Moonology deck, and this is New Moon in Leo, Shine. Now, this makes sense because the vision that I had that was coming through is when we make that decision, it's like the snowman has a light around them and they're like super happy and their frown turns, relax into a happy smile. And then they go over and they're connected with other people. So we have this joy, this light that comes in. And as an interesting kind of parallel and astrological component, Leo is really identified as the individual. So it's about me. And at the beginning of the week, this snowman is like, oh, this is like so horrible. This thing, me, what's happening to me? And like being mad, being against what's happening with the collective. Versus by the end of the week, when they can snap out of it, they can rejoin society and be feeling happier, healthier, and shedding the tendency or desire towards revenge or darkness or cynicism. And naturally, you might say, oh, like the new moon is a dark card. That's when there's the least amount of light. So I think that this card is capturing the dichotomy here because it's talking about shining, but then it's the darkest moon phase. So we have carried in this a little bit of both happening. And it does seem like it is a relationship between the two sister signs. We have Leo as an individual and Aquarius as the collective and humanitarian energy. The final note that I had for this second reading is there may be people that don't quite get to this shine energy until the very final hours of the week ahead, while others might get there within like a day or two. And ultimately, how quickly you get here is the barometer. It's the indicator for where you are at in your personal development journey regarding handling stress, unrest, injustice, and all of the notions that we've really been talking about with the individual versus collective in that relationship. The first thing I have to mention is that this is the third week in a row of doing these messages where there has been a pretty strong connection between the two readings, that they feel complementary to each other, they feel very similar, and that it's coming through that we're just in one or we're just in the other. They don't intermingle because they are representing slightly different manifestations of the same energy. So if you think about it, okay, we're in the pickle jar. We're being impacted in some way by what's going on with the collective. Something in the collective shifts. This is more passive, like something just happens and we go, oh, okay, that was interesting. That feels different. And I recognize through contrast what wasn't working and how important my mind is. Whereas for this reading, we're not enjoying, we are aware immediately. We know, like, I don't like what's happening here. I'm pissed. And yet it is within our power, not passive, very active to say, okay, I can respond differently. And both of them can then end with us in a better place. So we are in the water rather than the acidic pickle juice environment. And then we are connected with other people and have the light glowing around us and are more joyful rather than angry and vengeful. To circle back to the last few weeks, because again, this feels like it's yet another story in the chapter. The readings that we had for October 20th, we're talking about these internal processes that we're going through of how we're engaging with our own mind, receiving information, processing, etc. Then in the week of October 27th, we started actively engaging with our environment rather than cutting it off. And we needed to apply what we had learned the previous week about ourselves to inform our decision making and inform questions that we're asking, information that we're trying to get, etc. And then this week, it feels like it's almost the whole thing is flipped on itself because we're just a subject of the environment, especially for that first reading where we're just in it, we're there. And our mind is important. The work that our mind has been doing, the journey it's been on over the last few weeks is relevant. But we're more just having the realization, the reflection of, okay, wow. But here we have to have the mindfulness, we have to have the interrupter, the recognition of, whoa, okay, I'm, backsliding, or I'm going into something that is not going to help me nor anybody else. So they are very, very tied to the collective in a slightly different way. And again, the mind is at the center of it. So after I was doing my little readings here and my analysis, I was like, okay, well, I got to look at the astrology because I hadn't checked this. So I'm doing this some weeks out. I had no idea what was going on. So I was like, let me look. And I started laughing because we have on this week of November 3rd, Mars entering Sagittarius. All this talk of action and inaction, that's Mars. Mars is like your motivation and what you're feeling driven and passionate about. So it's moving into Sagittarius on the 4th. So again, the first or second day, depending on when this is landing for you in your time zone. And Sagittarius is all about the bigger picture. It's about this general fabric in the collective. And so I do think that that makes a lot of sense with this first card in particular. As far as the second card goes, it's a fellow fire sign. So we have a little bit of that action going on. And then we have Mars interacts with all these other planets this week. So we have it opposes the same day, opposes Uranus and Gemini. So that's like sudden change, some sort of a attention, something that's popping up. We have it sextiling Pluto, which is revealing something or thinking about our subconscious and how that's aligning or not aligning with our actions. So this whole theme of us versus the collective versus what we're doing with our actions, especially for that second reading or lack of action in the first reading, definitely makes sense with some of the astrology that's coming up. And to top it off, we have Venus entering Scorpio. So our shift in how we are relating to each other, relating to the environment, people around us, truth, reality, understanding, very Scorpio. Obviously, we're in Scorpio season, but Venus moving there gives us a whole other. So we're having these two ingresses that are happening, two personal planets that are shifting within approximately a little over 48 hours of each other. That's very notable. And in between that, we have a full moon, which is big energy. And I'm not done because then on Sunday, we have Mercury stationing retrograde, which is about the mind. We're already in the pre-shadow period. We get to the stationing, and that's when, all right, we're really having to flip and change some things around. We're really reflecting. Like, hey, now that I understand the contrast, what does that mean? Why was I acting that way? Why was I thinking that way? How can I get out of that? So I would say this astrology maps on in a very, very fascinating way. It is an astrologically active week. Be sure to head over to my Insight Timer page to check out my class schedule for November. It is, after all, a new month. And with a new month, that also means a new channeled message on my blog and a new month ahead track on Insight Timer. So you can listen and you can read accordingly to get additional forecasting beyond these week ahead readings. You can also go to my website for details on my current services, products, and my social media. So you can find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, Facebook, lots of different places. And you can also message me on any of them or through my website if you have questions, want to learn more, or just want to get in touch and say hi, hello, how are you? All right, I will leave everybody with that. Have a great rest of your week. I'll be back on the full moon day for my for my next astrology transit class, and then for my upcoming classes. So I will have a live reading next Monday, and there will be, more details and fun stuff there. But thank you for understanding my trip, my travels, my little adventure, and needing to do some pre-recording and taking some time off from the live classes. But missing everybody, looking forward to coming back. All right. Bye, everyone.